Gucci. All right, I'm getting ready to share. There's that. Baby, what's your story?
I always find things to complain about where I'm at work.
We're ready.
All right, let's do it.
Let get her done. That's funny.
It is funny. It never gets old.
Yeah. All right. Hey, it's the Brad and Britt cast. Thank you. Hello. It's our last one for this week, so we like to think it's going to be our best, but that'll be for you to decide.
Let's finish strong.
Right. Boy, some stupid things that we shouldn't be talking about.
There's
all of which we're going to talk about. That's how it works. Right.
People that are watching live, even though Brad has misspelled his name, unfortunately, we've learned late yesterday that the great Joe Rogan, who is a multi-billionaire thanks to Spotify, has COVID-19, Brad, and has said he wasn't going to get the vaccine, doesn't want the vaccine, and now apparently has thrown a kitchen sink of treatments at this thing. And some medical experts have dismissed some of the things that he has done. Joe Rogan, thoughts and prayers going out to him, certainly, correct?
I hope he dies. I am not even going to pretend to say the things
it's time
that people say on talk radio will say about something like this, where they will, quote, disagree with the fact that he is doing what he did, which was advocate against the vaccine and then not take it. And now he's, quote, throwing the kitchen sink, as if this is like some kind of fucking answer for anybody. He's 51 fucking years old and he's got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And this shit is not going to cure him. And he's going to end up with long haul something. Okay.
I hope so.
It doesn't matter whether you're a bodybuilder or MMA fighter or any of this shit. Okay. You are not special. Okay. So it would be really good if he died, because his death would get a lot more attention from the idiots out there, because he's got the kind of baseline following that would get the attention of a lot of the anti-vax community. Don't you think?
I would like to say that his death would save someone's life, but I'm not sure.
I'm not saying it's going to save some, but you know, we're just talking in the whole. In other words, some right-wing talk show host in Daytona Beach, who fucking cares, right? Yeah. I'm not taking it. It's still experimental. I don't know. They didn't do enough research. You know, people still say the same things. I understand that, but we need to move up the food chain in terms of fame,
right?
For people to die from this by being stupid. Okay, you're being stupid. I was listening this morning to Michael Smerconish, and a caller called him. This guy said, "I'm not vaccinated, and why aren't you?" And his response was, and he sounded like he had about a sixth grade education, and not that there's anything wrong with a sixth grade education.
No,
you can learn a lot of things in the first 6 grades. Okay?
That's right. Yeah.
But one of the things you're not going to learn, certainly in the broader subject sense of it, is complex biology. Okay, complex science. Okay, so when I hear a guy like that say, well, you know, they're tested enough, and it's an mRNA vaccine, and that's not like any other vaccine that's ever been invented before. It's never worked before. when I hear someone like that say that, you know you're listening to someone who's been propagandized by people who, I guess it's in their interest to be anti-vaxxers, and they spread the word and they have an audience, and you hear it bounce back at you in ways like this. So Smirkanish's response was, I don't think I can convince you in 30 seconds. Thank you. Goodbye. There's nothing to say. There's really, if you think you're an expert in science and in vaccine development by parroting what you heard on the Alex Jones show, and by the way, he's got some great supplements. You know, if you take some of the stuff he's taken, you're going to be muscle bound like him and Joe Rogan. Okay, you'll be so damn strong, you'll be able to beat the shit out of the virus by 4:00 this afternoon if it dares walk in your door. So get it right now. Get it right now.
Who are the? I just have a list of people I'd like to see die from COVID-19. Rogan is on it for sure. Idiot boy from Barstool Sports. Alex Jones, the idiot boy from Barstool Sports. I can't remember what that guy's name is.
Britt, what, you know what? This is the game I really want to play. This is let's play this game. Because there are several categories here that people fall into. There are the people who are anti-vaxxers who are living the gimmick and they're not getting vaccinated. Very often we're pretty sure they're not, because they won't say that they are, or they say it's a private matter. Or the old chestnut, I haven't heard anybody say this for a while, because even the most dopey person does, it's a HIPAA violation, and they don't even know what a fucking HIPAA violation is.
They have no idea. That's right.
All right. So you have the people who really haven't taken it and are out there, and they think that they're invulnerable. And these are some of the talk show hosts like Phil Valentine and Bernier and down in Florida, and the other ones that have died. And now Joe Rogan joins that group.
Right.
And then you have the people who are vaccinated and won't give it up, but they either work for a corporation or they're in a position, and that innately, even though they make a lot of money by being bullshit right-wing whatever they are, they got vaccinated. In fact, they were probably first in line to get vaccinated. Those are all the people on Fox.
Yeah.
They were the first one. You just know it. They all are vaccinated, and they won't cop to it. So they're lying about it. And then you have people in history. And this is the game that we're going to eventually get to, but let's not do it yet. I want you to think about this, because Limbaugh died too soon. He died too soon to be out front doing what you got to believe he would be on the side of the skeptics and doubting the science, and they want to control you. And this is big government. This is the worst thing ever. And it's freedom of choice. What about free? You got to. But he died too soon for that to become a real issue, right? He died fairly early.
February the 17th was February the 17th.
What was the day?
February 17th.
Yeah. So that's pretty early, okay, right? Because when I got my second vaccination, I think like March 1st, and I wasn't that long into it, so it wasn't in full bloom yet. So you got to believe So that's just an example of famous people in history, not recent history even, who, if they were alive today, where would they be on this particular subject? How troublesome would they have been? How horrible would they have been, or would they be right now if they were still alive? Because let me throw one up here that I saw a few minutes ago. This is about a woman, and she is from Georgia, and she is right out of Central Casting. She looks exactly like you're supposed to look like when you're from Georgia, and she is a paramedic. She's a paramedic, and she lost, sadly, her teenage son to COVID-19, but Jennifer Helm is her name. She says, "I'm still not willing to get vaccinated." That's right. That's right. She has changed her mind on a statewide mask mandate, but she's still not going to get vaccinated. And here's a line, and you know these like the back of your hand. What happens when you ask people about this? Ready? Quote, there's not enough research.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. It's over. Your fucking kid died.
What's the magic?
Your kid died.
What's the magic number? What is the goalpost moving on research? Another year and a half, 5,000 more pages, 10,000. What I want to know what again, for these idiots that put out this stupid fake, not enough research, I would just like to know exactly what fake number they would assign to that.
Do I have to fix everything you say? No, we need another 600 million people to take it, Britt.
Is that what it is?
Because the first 6, don't you understand?
It's so great. Oh, wait a minute. I did want to talk about that because they've been talking about, this is something they've been parading up and down the field, is that they say that a certain percentage of folks in the hospital in Israel have been vaccinated. They're in the hospital and they have COVID. And they're like, well, this just proves that the vaccine does not work because these people have had the vaccine and now. And the problem with that is, I think I saw that at least 60% of Israelis have been vaccinated, have been fully vaccinated, and 2/3 of the country, 66%, have received at least one dose. So it's much harder to find anybody in Israel who hasn't been vaccinated. So of course the people in the hospital who have COVID are going to have been vaccinated, much just by a claim and just by numbers.
Well, I think even more important than that, it's the percentage of people who, even if vaccinated, get a breakthrough case.
Mm-hmm.
And we just know that if you've been vaccinated and you get a breakthrough case, I mean, my own son would be an example of that. He never had to go to the hospital.
Right.
And he seems to be pretty much recovered. But if he had gone to the hospital, his chances of getting out of the hospital are really, really high compared to the person in the next room who is in the hospital unvaccinated and on a ventilator. And just for a little extra to the first story here, this woman whose son sadly died and is the paramedic in Georgia who says there's not enough research that's been done. She is in the hospital herself. She does have COVID herself, and she remains on oxygen, but that's not enough for her. They gave him some medicine. He went back to check on him, referring to the young man's father, and he just wasn't breathing. Okay, so you know, it just can't get any more horrible than that.
Yeah,
and you're leaning on you know what you heard on the Buck Sexton show yesterday or something like that.
Buck Sexton.
This is the first name that came to my mind.
Speaking of guys that need to die from COVID, I mean that would be right up there with all of them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's just play the game here for a moment, and let's just name some annoying people that if they were around today, I think they would be annoying regarding the taking of the even famous people who you thought had a lot of sense, good sense.
Right.
Like here's a name that gets dragged up every once in a while when you want to talk about great Americans who love their country. John Wayne.
Sure.
Okay.
John Wayne.
Marion Michael Morrison.
Yeah.
Airport used to be named after him in Orange County, California.
Yeah.
Now it's the Muhammad Alta airport or something.
They've just he got canceled. He got canceled in death.
He got canceled. His name got canceled off the airport. But you know, Wayne was always a guy that didn't want to take crap from anybody, and apparently in his real life, he didn't want to take crap from anybody. He was in a position to do that because he was well loved. He was flag waving. He was Republican. He was this. He was that. But I just have this feeling if he was here today, that he wouldn't be the guy who made the public service announcement. Well, you know, you got to get a vaccine every once in a while. You got to suck it up and do what the man says. I just don't think he'd be there.
It's hard.
You know, he did smoke all his life too, by the way, and I'm sure he died of lung cancer at a fairly, I think he was 70. I mean, not that old.
Right.
So that's just a name I've picked. You want to think of somebody else who if they were around today,
would be anti-vax and would be telling people not to take it from the man. I got to feel that G. Gordon Liddy is one of those guys that also left us a little bit too soon. I wish.
All right, I got a lefty who I think would be questionable on it. George Carlin.
Oh yeah, that would be weird.
Although George Carlin was actually a pretty nice guy, normal person, good father in his real life, which leads me to believe that he probably would have, even though if you go through all of his comedy, and there's so many hours of it, there's probably something in there about if not vaccinations, but about doctors and medicine and the rest. But I think he was too smart to not get vaccinated. A live George Carlin today.
Ultimately, I think the science would have won out for him. I think he would have eventually.
I think so.
I'm just tired of this. There's not enough research, and then for a long time it was the FDA hasn't approved it, and then you move the goalpost a little bit. Well, they approved it, but there's lots of stuff the FDA has approved that's been dangerous. So you got to move the goalpost a little bit more. It's all just absolute horseshit. And Joe Rogan, I guess if Joe Rogan ends up dying, he would be the biggest celebrity to die from this thing, right? Would that be it? Would he be the guy?
Well, Herman Cain, Joe Rogan.
It would be nice if we could get like a James Woods, or we get one of those guys to go down like a clown. That would be nice if we could get somebody like that, Thankfully Tom Hanks, when he got it, he recovered. He and his wife Rita Wilson did recover. So there's not, as far as the Hollywood stars, I don't even know. Again, I always think the celebrity thing is going to be helpful, but then I don't know. I think people are just really dialed into their stupidity.
Right, but let me give you an example of someone who you might think, because of his persona in public, would be a complete asshole, anti-vax, nutcase. Nobody can tell me what to do, and I know about it. All right, ready? Sean Penn. Now, as you probably know, Sean Penn not only is not that way, he is possibly personally responsible for getting more people vaccinated in this country than any other person. Any other person, right? He's the guy that set up Dodger Stadium to be the mass vaccination site in
what
Los
an
Angeles.
Asshole. What an America-hating commie. What a
exactly,
bastard.
Exactly. Right. Right. But and he is the guy that shows up in Haiti after the earthquakes, and he doesn't show up just to write a check and then get back on the airplane. I mean, he rolls up his sleeves, and I'm in great admiration of him. He's the next. He fills the Ed Asner space.
He does
on liberal celebrity, and he's 30 years younger, so he's got a long way to go.
And they keep talking about him as like a candidate possibly in the future to run for like the Senate or something in California. I've always heard all of this stuff.
It's possible. It's possible. All right. Okay. You got something else? I got a whole list of crap here if you want to.
No, go ahead. Please go forward with your agenda. I'd love to see what you got here.
My agenda. Most expensive event ever. The first thing I thought yesterday, when by late in the afternoon yesterday and into the evening, you started to see the Northeast getting flooded out. And I mean flooded out. I mean, have you ever seen anything
It's awful
like that? We're used to, and this is terrible, we're used to the coast of Florida sometimes, Tampa, sometimes the east coast of Florida.
Sure.
And we're used to New Orleans. We're used to Mobile getting flooded, and then but we've never in our lives ever seen the entire Northeast corridor, the I-95 corridor from Washington to Philadelphia to New York, and then way into Pennsylvania, completely flooded out. And I can't for the life of me figure out how this won't be the most expensive collective bit of property damage
Yeah.
ever in the history of the country. Superstorm Sandy. Okay, but you know what? That was the Jersey coast.
It
Boom,
was.
up the coast and off. No, this is the real thing. This is like the entire island of Manhattan being underwater. And I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, if your house, is flooded to, the 5 feet up, it's a total loss. It's
Yeah.
over. You can't that. That's it. The
In the terms
the
of human
loss of
life,
life
too.
is horrible.
You're seeing that. You're seeing right now, if you're watching us live, at least 25 dead as we record this. That number is surely going to go up in New York and New Jersey. And this is another personal pet peeve of mine, is that you get people when the hurricane is forming and they'll go, well, it's only a category 2. I mean, until it gets to a 3.
That, yeah.
The hurricane porn when this shit happens is ridiculous.
I heard, I can't remember, one of the guys on the Weather Channel actually said, all right, here are the 2 things that people completely misinterpret every time we do coverage of these storms. And one of the 2 was thinking that the category number of the hurricane is important.
Yeah.
It means very, very little, since, of course, hurricane damage is wind and or water. Okay. And
I think the most expensive storms and the deadliest storms in the history of the country, I think, have been like just tropical storms or the remnants of tropical storms like this. And this is what you're seeing in New York and New Jersey. The idea is that the storm system just moves very slowly and just sits there and dumps rain. It doesn't matter if it's producing 190,000 mile an hour winds and the eye is well formed and the wall is this. That's not important. What's important is that it's just sitting there and pumping out inches and inches and feet of rain, and that's what you're seeing right now.
Right. Well, I found a list before. Katrina was still the most expensive storm, like $184 billion. But there's been a ton of damage down in Louisiana again. Not as much as Katrina, obviously, but a lot down there. And then you start to add in what's going on elsewhere up into the Northeast. And I just can't. Here's my point. And I memed this earlier today. I said, if you're and by the way, as you know, I'm a car buying expert. I just bought one.
You just nailed it.
And you don't have to be a car expert to know this. If you're buying a used car, buy it today, buy it tomorrow, because there are going to be more flooded vehicles on the market, in the used car market, showing up soon, that they're going to try to hide, and they're going to try to lie about the history of it. Because, of course, as you know, for instance, if you trade a car in just on a regular trade to buy a new car, that's one of the questions that they ask you. If you go to CarMax, and go there and try, they ask you that. They absolutely ask you that. And of course, they can tell. There's almost no way to hide it, but I would guess there's going to be a lot of people that will, and there's a lot of private sales of cars and the rest. But my point is, imagine how many people are just going to say, I have no interest in driving this car anymore. You see all those cars where the water is all the way up to the side. They're ruined, right? You can't fix that. You can't dry that. You can't take a hair dryer and fix a car that's been in a flood.
Well, there's also like a fraudulent standard where if the water comes up to this part on the door, then they don't totally. I mean, there's like it's the absolute bullshit, So there's always you're right, and it's. I think you've had fun adventures with a bad time to buy used cars, but yes, there is your actual statement that you made on Facebook. If you're even thinking about picking up a used car, do it immediately before the hundreds of thousands, millions of newly flood damaged vehicles worm their way into the supply. The fraud will be, as DJT used to say, like no one's ever seen before. This is what we're going to see.
Very important. It's very important that you will go say it the right way, because it
like no one's ever seen it. It's weird because as we get further separated from that asshole, and he's not on Twitter and he's not able to, you do kind of forget about what an asshole-ish persona he used to have and stuff. And then all of a sudden you'll think back to, oh, this is the worst lots of people are saying, and all the horseshit we had to endure for all of those years. I assume he's going to make a fantastic appearance on 9/11 somewhere where real Americans are going to be celebrating, or not celebrating, but marking the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I'm assuming Donald Trump's going to be there with
Britt,
the real Americans.
Again, you're not paying close enough attention, because
Yes.
he already has announced that he will be appearing in downtown Manhattan, right next to his building, which, as you know, he let everyone know that right after the Twin Towers fell, that he had the tallest building in southern Manhattan, which, of course, that wasn't even true. That was a wonderfully obnoxious lie that, even if it were true, would have been wonderfully, horribly, terribly obnoxious to say, as if that's a thing that was important after the Twin Towers were knocked down. So he's going to go back there and sell. No, he's not. Him, you know. I unless we're missing something, when he steps foot in the city, he tries to do it as inconspicuously as possible, because apparently New Yorkers carry tomatoes in their pants all the time, and they're ready to toss them at him. If not
Soup
literally,
for
then
soup for my family, Brad. That's what they're carrying around for Donald Trump. We did a drive-by on this when it happened about a week ago. Osama bin Laden wasn't that bad. Was the actual quote from Donald John Trump, and that's not even taken out of any sort of context. Donald John Trump saying, actually, Osama wasn't that bad. There were a lot of people that did a lot worse.
Right. Well, okay. Now, to be fair, Osama bin Laden, he did a lot of bad things, but he did get the camels to run on time.
See what you did there.
Yeah. You see, there was this guy in Italy, but
you think it was bad, and then it would be interesting if Trump would have some sort of special T-shirt of him standing in front of the Twin Towers and stopping the planes with his hand to raise money for his re-election campaign. That would be my sincere hope for the Trump campaign, or that they would sell tickets to some opulent ballroom where they would have the real celebration of the real Americans, while those bleeding heart liberals go over and cry in front of the actual memorial itself.
All right. Now, can we circle back to this idea? And there's a great piece in the Washington Post. I think Nancy Gibbs, who used to be the editor-in-chief of Time magazine, she wrote it, and it's all about whether hospitals should be prioritizing vaccinated people over unvaccinated people when they show up at the hospital. If the ICU has 20 beds, okay, and they're all filled, and you just had a heart attack and you need to get in there, for instance, should you, as a heart attack victim who you need to get in there, should you not be able to get an ICU room because a bunch of dopes who are unvaccinated are on oxygen and in the ICU? I have a different way to set up the prisoner's dilemma here. Okay, the Sophie's Choice kind of thing, which is this: you have two people who have almost, at the moment that they check in, identical symptoms. Mm-hmm. Okay, identical symptoms, and there's only one ICU bed left. Do you automatically take the person who is vaccinated first? Because by definition, even with identical symptoms, that person has a much better chance of surviving. And doctors and hospitals and in moments of crisis, they have to make this decision all the time. And you know what? They don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. And right now, the public stance by most of them is under the Hippocratic oath that we're not in the moral judgment business. If you smoke for 30 years and you come in here with lung cancer, we don't lecture you and we don't kick you out. We treat you.
Right.
If you're an alcoholic and your liver is failing and your name is Stephen Stills or your name is Mickey Mantle, you still can get the liver. Okay.
If you're obese, you've been eating your entire life, you have diabetes and all of the comorbidities that come with that, we still treat you. We still do. Yeah.
Exactly. They still treat you. But I think this is different. I think it's completely different because none of those situations are connected with public health and the well-being of everyone else in the room, in the town, in society in general. And with a year and a half of putting pressure on the medical system of this country, you should know better. And therefore, yeah, we will treat you. We will treat you, but we will not treat you before we treat someone who at least did the minimalist thing in treating themselves when that was recommended for everyone, and you have shunned that opportunity. So we certainly do want to treat you, but we do not have unlimited medical resources.
I believe that's called triage. I believe they refer to that as triage.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
That makes sense to me.
Very few people in medicine, very few doctors, very few presidents of hospitals have come out so far. A couple of them have, and have said, "Shit, if you're not vaccinated, I'm not even going to treat you." I mean, you know, and of course, well, you can't do that. Oh, then you're playing God. And we've got to make decisions. We've got to make decisions. Your local hospital, our local hospital, only has so much room for so many people.
Well, I find that this is part of the entitlement is like, fuck it. That's just what the hospital does. And if we stack body after body after body after body after body in the waiting room, fuck it. That's what you guys do. And you have to deal with it. The people who allegedly, again, care for healthcare workers and so on and so forth. I have heard of, in our area, Brad, various hospitals. I won't name any names, but I've heard of such a thing as a 19-hour wait in some cases. If you have an exigent case, obviously, if you come in and you have a bloody stump and blood is spurting out of your hand, that's going to be a little different. But I've heard of wait times that are like that, and I'm not just firing from the hip about that. The guy that they're really beating up about this is Don Lemon, apparently, who has said very clearly on CNN to unvaccinated people, don't go to the hospital. Don't take up resources. Of course, this is the Fox News version I'm showing you, which is, Don Lemon is just a putz and a moron and an idiot for saying this, and let's beat up on him. Even though what he's saying is 100% right.
Britt, that is the worst out of context characterization of what Don Lemon said or meant. So you know what? Take that down. Just take that down, because that's not. No, not really. I truly don't want to talk about the way.
But that's how it's being. That that's how it's being. But that's not.
No. Only in there a little. Let's talk about it for the reality of everybody, not what Don Lemon said. Okay, because the fact is we have a memo that was written by a bunch of doctors in Texas. And they wrote this privately. The Dallas Morning News got a hold of it. And they said that because a patient's prognosis is part of the equation and the vaccination reduces the chances of severe infection and death, here's what they said. Vaccine status, therefore, may be considered when making triage decisions, which triage comes from the French word to choose or select. How come we don't have an NFL triage, okay, to choose or select? It's a draft. You see what I did there?
Yes.
See what I did? Anyway, it can be used to make triage decisions as part of the physician's assessment of each individual's likelihood of survival. Okay, so this gets out there, and people go nuts. It's the end of the world. How dare, and this wasn't official hospital policy. They were just talking amongst themselves, probably in a bar somewhere, away from people. But they did write it down, and it got there. And this is, we got to do it. We got to do it. And it's not going to be a permanent feature here. The numbers are starting to go down. This apparent 2-month bulge when these spikes hit, which it happened in India, happened in Britain, it's starting to happen here. So, of course, I'm getting ready. Write this one down. Get ready for Ron DeSantis to declare victory because the coronavirus numbers go down all across the country and then also in Florida. He's going to say, I was right. About what, you idiot? You're going to lie. Okay. But that's going to happen. But I agree. I think this is a different discussion than diabetics who come in because they went on a Hershey bar binge and they end up. That's all bad. That's all bad. But it's not a public health issue. We treat drunk drivers if they get into a car accident. We don't lecture them while they're being wheeled in and say, "Oh, you're going to the back of the line. You were drunk driving. You should." And we just don't. But then a drunk driver, for the most part, is not going to infect the entire community with drunk driving. So this is different. This is a different animal all the way, I think. And doctors make these kinds of decisions all the time. They're doing it constantly, but they're not allowed to talk about it. So we can talk about it here. And why is that?
Because we're on a podcast. And I know we noted that the National Football League Players Association is at least fake mad at Urban Meyer, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, for saying that vaccination status was a part of deciding who to keep on his roster. So they're going to do an investigation. They're going to look into it. And I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase. In the end, he won't be penalized or fined or slapped on the wrist or anything, because again, it's like you're running up. He shouldn't be. It's a job with a group of people, and whether you're doing it, you're running a grocery store in Durham, North Carolina, or you're running an NFL franchise, you have to have people there who can work and not make other people sick. And if you just have to. Oh, by the way, I'll just throw this on the screen so it can piss you off for half a second about Ron DeSantis. There you go. All the way from yesterday. Wealthy donors flocking to DeSantis as presidential speculation swirls. This guy has seen. His popularity has just gone in the toilet.
Well, wait. Actually, that makes sense. The more unpopular a right-wing Trump wannabe autocrat thug becomes, the more unpopular they become, the more that would tend to draw in big Republican money, don't you think? That's a great feature, because look, it worked for us one time. Okay.
Well, let me ask you.
We're not even going to hang on. We're not. This is what they're saying. We're not even going to go through the motions this time of hating DeSantis the way we hated Trump, because we really knew he was a piece of shit. But then we got on board. Okay, so this time we're going to skip the moral judgment and the objective judgment that this guy is a nut and he will do anything to achieve power. Let's just throw money at him now. So. That story doesn't make me mad. It just confirms, in a way, what we know about the emptiness of the Republican Party, or whatever the bones scattered all over the floor that are left of it are. I mean, that's what it is. But where are these rich guys who've been Republicans all their life? Where are they going to go? An average person can make a decision. A pundit could make a decision. George Will could make a decision. He can say, "I'm not a Republican anymore. I'm done."
Yeah.
Okay. People, Bill Kristol, these people, they can walk away from it, but then they don't have millions of dollars invested publicly with the Republican Party over the years. So, money may talk, but money can choke you also at a certain point. And I think they're caught. What are they going to start sending money to Joe Biden for re-election in 24? They're not.
Let me ask you this. Is there anybody, as I always am speculating about 2024, is there anyone not named Trump who would be the Republican nominee who you would go, I wouldn't be scared of that person. There's no way that person could beat Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or whoever the Democratic nominee is in 2024. Is there anybody that I could name?
Yes, there is.
Who is it?
And I've thought about this. His name's Abe Lincoln.
That guy would be toast. He would never be able to make it. There are certain people. But with my increased beard,
there are some seemingly. Actually, this is crazy, because you have to peel away everything you now know about what they have in total given up these last 5 years, whatever claim they had on whatever it was, classic Republican Party stuff was, before that just got thrown over the side of the boat in enthrallment to Donald Trump and in fear of him. And I don't know how you get that back. I don't know how you get that back. And I don't know who would ever emerge, there certainly isn't going to be somebody from whatever the Bush wing or whatever the fuck that is. There's nothing there. There is nothing there. There's nobody from North Carolina or none of those people that ran against Trump in 2016. That group of Republicans. Can you name one of those people who has a soul that you would trust? Marco Rubio? People like, no, absolutely not. No, and you can't do it. I'll tell you who I think is a pretty good guy. I don't agree with him on everything, but I know for the most part he's about as straight a shooter as there is, and he has about as much chance of getting the nomination as you do getting that starting quarterback job on the Panthers this year.
Yep.
If there's an opening, okay, and me too. And the answer is John Kasich of Ohio, the two-term governor, a long-time congressman, and a guy who, he was down at the end of the stage at every debate. Remember where they would put him? Yeah. They would put him all the way down on the right, and they didn't let him talk all that much. But he got his shots in, and you've seen him over the years, and I think he's a pretty thoughtful guy, and he ran Ohio pretty well, especially compared to Mike DeWine, who is getting a pass because he didn't completely fuck up the COVID response like other Republican governors across the country. So remember that it's grading on a curve, okay? If you're a Republican governor right now and you're not Greg Abbott, or you're not Ron DeSantis, or you're not those yahoos in Mississippi and Georgia, okay? If you're not those people and you haven't screwed it up that badly, then you get, well, he's kind of a normal guy. So DeWine gets that little bit of shine, but on basic things, he's been as a hard right conservative off the wall as any of them, on all the abortion crap and other things like that in Ohio. So, but I think Kasich's a pretty thoughtful guy, and I'm not saying that because he went to the Ohio State University. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Speaking of nothing, and show us your papers in Florida. We'll leave you with this one. If you ask for COVID vaccine proof, you could face a $5,000 fine in Florida. They're going to start enforcing this, Brad. Governor DeSantis signed this into law earlier this year as he was banning vaccine passports. And if you start asking for your papers, Florida will start issuing $5,000 fines to businesses, schools, and government agencies that require people to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination.
Hasn't that shit been already knocked down by the courts?
No,
isn't he? He's losing every time.
He is, but this story was actually
3 days ago,
published yesterday at 11:54 p.m. So it was 6 minutes before midnight. So fines will start September the 16th if people are asked to show proof of vaccine.
Yeah, let's bring this up again on September 16th. I guarantee you, between now and then, that'll get knocked down by a court.
Yeah, okay? But it's important.
That's about as legal as. Forget it. You cannot do these negative laws against speech to
and preemptive. It's like a
preemptive
the
public good. I mean, it's crazy. And by the way, how is this one going to get enforced in terms of it getting into the justice system or the legal system? Do I just have to call up 911 and say, somebody just asked me for proof of vaccination? Will you arrest them, please? How does that work? But again, right, it's unenforceable, and it's kind of the
as you know, the police officers in any city in America are just standing around with nothing to do, so they certainly have time to go out and fuck with this stuff.
They really want to go out and confront people who had the nerve to. Now, this obviously doesn't cover private businesses, does it? A restaurant.
Yes. It's businesses, schools.
Okay. This is so. Oh, come on, stop it. This is
No,
just
I'm,
silly.
and it's also I love.
This
but I
is
love
too
the idea.
stupid for us to talk about. It being too stupid to talk about.
I
It's
also
so
love the
stupid.
idea that it's a government agency, which will be paying a government agency. Like if you are violating, then you just write the fine out to yourself, don't you? It's the government fining itself for being bad.
But this is the sixth cousin twice removed of what just passed in Texas and was just signed with this crazy ass abortion shit that they're doing there, because they really got the best graduates they could find of right-wing law schools to fashion a law there where, how do you enforce it? Well, it's going to be the people enforcing it. It's going to be people who are going to let the authorities know that abortion laws have been violated. So that takes the onus off of the government for finding.
But it's
anonymous.
Wait,
so in Florida,
it's anonymous,
it sounds
right?
like right. So in Florida, it sounds like it's the same thing, right? Because you have an unenforceable law. So what do? You farm it out, okay, to the citizenry to go vigilante on your behalf. Or as I memed earlier today, Gomer Pyle in his famous Citizens Arrest episode. Citizens Arrest. Somebody just.
I think on the Texas website it's anonymous and you can upload pictures of like violators. Yeah. I think people are uploading like pictures of Ivanka Trump and shit like this. Stuff of that nature.
Right. And by the way, you can retire. You can retire the passive aggressive award for 2021 to the United States Supreme Court.
Oh my God!
For voting 5-4 to let it go. Let it go. That sounds like a song. Let it go. Let it go.
It does.
And not weigh in on what they're doing in Texas and hands off and the rest of it. And I don't want to say poor John Roberts, okay, but John Roberts joined the three liberals in the 5-4 decision. But this is what he's wrought too. Okay,
this is the other side of an activist court. Remember, they would yell for years about it. This was a court that said, no, we're not going to listen to that. Fuck that. We're done. Right.
And it's Roberts himself personally has kind of become, a swingy justice, but you're not a swing justice if there's an automatic 5 other people who are going to vote one way every time. You can join the other 3 until your robe turns blue, and it's not going to change anything. So, but wow, Florida and Texas, they're something else, aren't they?
They are something else.
Really something else that they got to fix those places. Boy, I'm so glad. That I don't have to go down to Florida anymore. I mean, I wish my parents were alive to go see them, but I'm glad that there's no actual other reason to go down to Florida right now, because it just seems like a poisoned atmosphere. I mean, there's culture wars all across the country, but it really seems to have gone nuts in those 2 states. Remember how we used to joke about, all right, what's the dumbest state it would be sometimes South Carolina, Florida, Texas. But I you know what? Again, we got to shut that contest down, because there's just 2 winners. There's co-winners on this, and I don't think anybody else can touch them.
Nope.
I don't. So, and one more thing before we go, and I know it's not next week, it's the week after, but they're going to do this California recall election, trying to toss out Gavin Newsom. And apparently the numbers are starting to really swing his way.
Correct.
Okay. And they're feeling a little bit more confident. And now I'm already reading guess what's going to happen if and when he beats the recall? That makes you more powerful. That gives that puts a lot more juice in your shorts. Right?
Well, he's already come through. I mean, he already came through a pandemic, and they had a surplus in that budget. I mean, he must be feeling his oats. And if he gets through this, the finances of the state of California, and again, remember, California is the largest
real life experiment of what happens if you have liberals and Democrats running your government, your
Right.
state. California, 40 million people, right?
Yeah.
5th largest economy on earth.
Right.
I mean, they're doing it out there. So it's the best of times and the worst of times in California. It's always been that way. So they're probably number one in homeless, and they're shitting all over the streets of San Francisco.
Sure.
And it's a mess there. But at the same time, there's a lot of prosperous people who love being there, and you couldn't get them to leave California if you wanted them to. But on the other hand, they've got the number one ranking in forest fires, and half the state is burning to the ground. But who wants to leave? I'm not going. So, but just by definition, if you're governor of California, you are always in the conversation as a presidential candidate. And by the way, remember Jerry Brown, who was the 2-term governor right before Newsom. He left the cupboard full. He didn't leave it bare. He was the one that turned around the finances of California. He did it. Jerry Brown. Yeah. Crazy Governor Moonbeam.
Moonbeam.
He did it right. Right. So if that happens, it's amazing because there are pivot points all over the place right now. In politics, international and domestic. I think that's a big one out there. We don't pay that much attention to it because we're here in the East. But that is a pretty big deal. If it went the other way and Larry Elder suddenly became the governor of California, that would really be a bad thing, because that would give Republicans, even if he really can't do that much as a governor in a Democratic state with a veto-proof Democratic legislature, if he had the title of governor, it would still be a big deal. It would give them some kind of impetus nationally. They would feel it. They would say
it would be seen as a victory for Trump too. It would be there's no question. It would be painted as a victory for Trump,
even with what will probably be like an 8% turnout of votes. Okay,
Correct.
You don't get to say that. You don't ever get to say that. Well, you sort of do, but it doesn't matter. You got to mobilize your voters, and you got to get them. You got to get them out there. I think we've done enough. I got a few other things on the list, but I'm going to keep them to myself and
let that
and we
go.
can bring them up. And what we will see between now and when we talk again Monday, I haven't looked at all the details, but apparently the famous phrase uttered on the Brad and Ralph show well over 30 years ago by a caller who said, "Why don't you make a big deal out of General Lee?" Apparently the statue in Richmond is about to go.
It's about to go.
The courts have ruled. The final decision was made. That was the last statue, right? There were these people filing lawsuits to save the General Lee statue, the last vestige of the lost cause Civil War mentality in that city, the capital of Virginia. And so let's see if Monday, if General Lee has survived.
Well, we're actually going to be skipping. We'll be skipping Monday because of Labor Day.
Oh, that's right, Monday. Right, Tuesday. Yeah,
back on Tuesday.
Well, when I said Monday, I meant Tuesday.
You meant metric Monday. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew what we were talking about.
Right. So General Lee will be joining at that vacation villa in San Simeon Island. He'll be joining Silent Sam, right? Some of the other famous
Jeb
statues,
Stewart, Stonewall Jackson.
Stonewall Jackson, all those ones that have been yanked down. Poor guys, poor people. All right, we'll see you Monday.
Tuesday.
That's right.
Bye.